Jordan, welcome to Millionaire University. As I mentioned to you before, an episode I just recorded leads perfectly into this because there are so many seasons as entrepreneurs that we run into. And the one that you're going to help us address is, okay, we are having success. We're ready to start outsourcing. Maybe we don't even know we're ready to outsource, but regardless, you're going to show us how, why, who, what, when, all the things. So thanks for joining me today.
Exactly. Thanks, Kristen. Happy to be on.
Yeah. So I want to hear a little bit about Omni. You are the founder, you're the CEO, I'm assuming, of Omni.
Mhm.
And I know we've done like a formal introduction before this. So just catching myself up a little bit. Tell me a little bit about what inspired you to start this and like the gap between maybe even human service and automation, because I know that's kind of where you guys are coming in and changing things up a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So I've been in the service industry my entire career, so 20 plus years. Basically, if there's a way to help people, I've done it. I've worked across 5 continents, managed large service teams, and along the way, it was always the same problem. Customer service industry wasn't evolving. It was stuck in a time warp. And traditionally, it was rows and rows of cubicles, agents answering phones, and the goal of the management team was to get customers off the phone as quickly as possible, whether the problem was actually solved or not. Meanwhile, technology is moving at warp speed. But these companies, AI, automation, most of them avoided it like it was going to put them out of business. And I could see why you might think that. And that's where we saw an opportunity. Instead of forcing brands to choose between the old school service or clunky automation, we wanted to build a full service solution that actually makes sense. So we provide a dedicated team of agents, managers, team leads, plus all the tech and the AI that they need to thrive. And we don't just cover phone and email. We're talking live chat, social media, phone, email, WhatsApp, anything but Morse code and smoke signals. And AI, of course, flashy new tool. Everybody wants to talk about that. And for I think we've all had pretty poor experiences with AI. It sounds about as personalized as a robot reading from a script. You get responses like, I'm sorry you're frustrated. Try turning it on and off again. That kind of stuff. Not exactly a warm touch, but thanks to ChatGPT, AI is finally getting smarter, more natural, more personalized, and that's a big game changer. Now it's something that they want us to use versus something that brands were a little bit iffy about. So I think you asked how we balance AI and human support. AI is great for things like where's my order, product FAQs, anything that's knowledge-based really excels with that. But humans build relationships. So they sell, they turn a frustrated customer into a loyal one. I don't think that AI is going to be replacing human support anytime soon completely. Instead, we see AI as a way to support teams. So the agents don't have to spend all day answering basic questions, copy, pasting responses. They can actually focus on sales, building genuine relationships, retention, and creating great customer experiences rather than just plugging through as many tickets as possible. So I guess it's not about less human support. It's about better human support powered by AI.
I love that. I think you hit on something that I've seen in a lot of other entrepreneurs where there's a fear of like, well, I don't want it to sound robotic. I don't want to disconnect. Like, it's funny because AI actually does help us achieve the goal, which is we want better connection. We want more authenticity.
Yeah.
We're all craving that as human beings. And I think utilizing it as a tool that supports that rather than replaces that is the key for sure. So I love that, that place where you guys have found the overlap.
Yeah. And we give customers any option they want to connect with customer support. It could be phone, it could be AI, but there's always an option to talk to a human at every step of the way. So someone like myself, I don't want to talk to a human. I just want my answer quick. I want to be able to self-help. Someone like my mother would like to make a phone call. So we're not hiding the support team behind AI. Customers can choose to communicate however they like.
Okay, so let's break down what Omni does specifically and how this is relevant to us as entrepreneurs. There's so many different questions and angles that I want to go into with you. So we'll do as best we can to cover it. But like I said, I was just interviewing somebody who we shared, there does just have to come to a point. I love that we don't have to have the hustle season be forever.
Yeah.
Right? Like we have to get smart. We have to start thinking in terms of outsourcing.
Yeah.
And I think if you do that too soon, you can cause some problems. But like, how would you say the time is right? And then where does Omni come
Yeah,
in to help alleviate that?
exactly. So as you're scaling, there comes a point where you're doing things on the side of your desk. And customer support is one of them. And it's the easiest thing to brush aside and last resort thing I'm going to do at the end of the day, once a day, right? You're focused on selling products, marketing, finding new customers. Well, depending on your business. And there comes to a point where your customer service experience starts to slide and you're thinking, do I want to bring in an in-house team and manage them and deal with time off? Or do I just want to pass it off to experts who know what they're
Mm-hmm.
doing and can build AI and manage everything completely for us? So what we do is we build up a team of dedicated agents and managers to support those agents. And those agents are dedicated to the company. The traditional BPO model is either sharing agents amongst a number of brands, which leads to human responses that are more robotic than AI responses because they can't
Mm-hmm.
replicate the brand tone and the brand voice when they're working with a t-shirt company and a waste management company. Really difficult to
Yeah.
do. So we have a team of dedicated agents, managers, and a tech team that builds all the support technology and the AI, if that's what our partners like. So our partners focus on growing their business versus being in the weeds of customer service because the agents have all the
Mm.
support. And it's when those brands are ramping up and deciding whether they want to do it in-house or not is when we typically partner with a business.
Mm. What do you see being the advantage to working with your agency or an agency in general versus having that in-house? I know you kind of mentioned that, like, do I want one more thing that I have to manage in terms of
Yeah,
payroll or employee time off, things like that? Is that
yeah.
kind of the big differentiator for people why they choose to go with you guys?
So yeah, there's a couple big reasons that our partners outsource. They just don't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the best job. Like it's tough to manage customer service. It's tough to manage people when you want to focus on. And we work with a lot of e-commerce brands where it's just a couple people managing the business, and they're spread really thin, and they're already used to
Mm-hmm.
outsourcing marketing and their 3PL. Why not customer service? So the
Mm.
big value is just I just don't want to do it. But also cost savings. And so we can hire from any country in the world. The big driver is what's your budget and your language requirements. So we can support over
Mm-hmm.
100 global languages. So if you do have any unique requirements like that, it could be tough to find in your country or your city. So those are the
Yeah.
big drivers. It's price. I don't want to do it. And I don't really know what I'm doing with customer
Mm-hmm.
service when it comes to
Yeah.
technology, but also building SOPs and having a well-oiled machine.
Well, I definitely know that's a pain point for entrepreneurs, even when you're early on and you start.
Yeah,
Like, for your first kind of struggle is like, let's get clients, let's get
yeah,
customers. Then you start to have those and you're like, oh, now in addition to the putting the marketing time in and the product fulfillment, now I also have to do customer service. Oh my gosh.
yeah,
That can be enough sometimes to hold people back from even wanting their businesses to succeed
yeah,
when they start to see like, oh my gosh, there's so many more
yeah,
emails coming through now. Every single person I've helped is now a person that I have to continue to help.
yeah.
So I can see it being a huge struggle, and something that is probably pretty quick early on that you want to hire out. And you mentioned cost. I know that, well, actually, before we even get into cost, I want to address something that you said too is like you start to put it off to the end of the day. How does that impact your bottom line? Which kind of drives me into the question of, is this really a cost or is this helping you increase revenue?
Exactly. So if you're spending time doing customer support as the entrepreneur, you're not focused on doing something else. So it does stunt your growth. And then, what we do get a lot is, oh, I have my buddy Steve comes in and does emails for a couple hours a day. That's not a great experience for the customer. We find that you need to be there and I'm just using e-commerce as just a vertical here for examples, but we find that the best time to convert a site visitor is when they're on your site shopping. So they have something in the cart. There's one question that they need to have answered to get them across the finish line. You're going to make them fill out a contact form and get back to them tomorrow. They may not come back. That's like walking into a retail store and asking a question and they'll say, come back tomorrow. We'll give you the answer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the sentiment that's been around for a while, is that the customer service is an expense. it's actually a revenue generator if it's done right. So we have really cool metrics where we can tell when a customer chats with an agent and then goes on to make a purchase during that session. We consider that a conversion while they're chatting with the agent, and we record all of that. We see some really big ROI on just having a live agent ready to help customers while they're shopping in less than a minute. So poor customers are the lifeblood of your business. So many brands do it so well that if you just have a contact form and an email and you're getting back to them at the end of the day, it's just not good enough. It's like, I can't wait 2 days for my package anymore because of Amazon. It's next day. If you're going to ship me something in 3 days, too long. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I love the comparison. Like, you wouldn't walk into a retail place and not be helped immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that we are a generation that thrives on instant gratification, but you can't like fight it. You can't say, oh, well, people should just be patient. Well, do you want to be patient waiting for the cash flow then?
Yeah.
Because you're basically rejecting income as you postpone this. So is there like a certain point that you find a lot of people realize the need for this? Is it pretty early on in the business? And I know you mentioned e-commerce is just an example, a vertical, but what else? What are some of the big industries that you see have a bigger need than they might realize for outsourcing customer service?
Yeah. So e-commerce is a great vertical. Is the perfect candidate for outsourcing because, like I mentioned before, they outsource everything else. They run really lean, often don't have office space, and they want to run lean. So that's a perfect vertical. And we find that SaaS companies that require a lot of tech support, you can automate basic troubleshooting, but when it gets to, if that basic troubleshooting doesn't work, then you need a human on the other end to help support that. So that's where we find our two biggest verticals: anything technology related, consumer electronics, e-commerce, telehealth. We find it's really big and a growing industry there. And then, that's what we focus on. And of course, telecommunications, we don't really focus on telecommunications though.
Yeah. So what does that look like on your guys' end when you have somebody who, if it is SaaS, and I'm just thinking back to a really awesome plugin. We paid this additional membership or subscription cost to have built-in customer service, and it was our dedicated customer service. We didn't have to hire in-house. So I have some experience with using this outsourced support, but how do you facilitate that? I know you mentioned like it's global, you have a lot of different languages you can pull from, but when it gets technical into technical knowledge, what does that look like? How do you prepare on your end, and how does that serve the client?
Yeah, so our recruiting process is a little different than your traditional BPO, where they find an agent, they deliver them to you. You haven't really met them. They just say, it's fine. John will be great. You haven't met him, but trust us, that'll be fine. What we do is we take an agent profile from our brand, from any partner that we're working with, what their requirements are, what their day-to-day looks like, a job description, essentially. We hire agents based on their requirements. So we make sure we find people that check all their boxes, whether that's technical skills, languages, experience with a similar brand or similar vertical, US-based customers, whatever their requirements are. We do first interviews, background checks, reference checks. If we think they're a good fit, we submit them to our partner, their CVs with a video recording. They're also welcome to meet with them and chat with them first. So that way, both parties are comfortable with who's going to be supporting their customers. But also, we think it's really important that our agents are a good culture fit for the business. Sometimes more important than necessarily exact relevant experience. We want to feel like an extension of the business. So that's how we operate, and that's how we prepare for to find the right agent. And then from there, we take any training material that's required. We build a training program through an LMS here where agents get tested, and we test their knowledge before they have any live interactions with customers. And then we built a pretty robust knowledge base where the agent can just chat with a bot to get answers instead of combing through pages and pages of training information. So the basic troubleshooting we could automate, and then anything more advanced goes to a human. But we build up, I'm talking specifically something highly technical. We build up such a knowledge base that they have access to all the resources they need. And since they're dedicated, they understand the product really well. If you had an agent working with 5 different companies that are very tech heavy, that would be a disaster. I think it would be really tough to have a good experience.
Well, It's so interesting hearing you answer that question because I think as an entrepreneur, I'm thinking, okay, so if I wanted to do this in-house and I want to hire somebody to take this over, I'm gonna have to do all the things you just did for me. So the outsourcing doesn't just involve the service being provided,
Yeah.
it involves those SOPs, it involves the training, it involves the recruiting process of the right people in the right
Yeah.
places, which if you're an entrepreneur and you are because you're listening to this, you know how much your time is already so
Yep.
precious and limited. And so I think hearing that there's this mental alleviation too of the whole entire process, not just the end
Yep.
result itself,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Do you want to deal with fires on the weekend as an
Mhm.
owner, right? Or have somebody that's dealing with that for you? I just got off the phone with somebody that asked the question that I get often is, why wouldn't I just do that myself? You can. Go ahead.
Mhm.
Go hire the person and train them, but your time's worth something too, right? Your time could be
Yeah.
better spent doing something else or enjoying a weekend where your phone's not blowing up from an upset customer. So there's a lot to factor in than just the agent's wage and like how it compares to what you're doing in house. It's everything else that's involved, like you said.
Yeah. Well, so there's like that time cost comparison. You're saving yourself a lot of time, but then even the financial cost, I don't know what your pricing is. We don't even need to know and
Mhm.
compare these like dollar for dollar. But I think honestly, when I've compared this, when you factor in having to pay an employee, even if you can get your friend Steve for a couple hours a week, like I think you have to look at the bigger picture,
Yeah.
right? In terms of profitability in your business.
Yeah.
And even just that, Steve could leave. Steve could not want to do this anymore. Not to mention he could do a terrible job when he's doing
Yeah.
it. I love that we just have this fake person here. But what are some of the other things that you can help us factor in terms of cost, like actual hard financial cost,
Yeah.
when you're looking at the bigger picture compared to just like, oh, I'll just cut some corners right now?
Yeah. So benefits is important as well. That's something that you may not factor in when you're looking at costs internally. Taxes if you're hiring in your own country as well. Technology costs, like a technology team or a developer is not cheap. If you're paying by the hour to get a project done, you may pay 160 plus an hour for a project. And you need to find that person, educate them on what you want done. So those are the big parts of that we factor in when we're chatting
Hmm.
with businesses on how much they could save. And even if you just looked at our hourly cost for an agent, it's less than what you'd pay in your own city for the most part. So it's a no-brainer to save costs and gain all this expertise on top of it.
Yeah. Okay, I want to continue down this vein.
Mhm.
And then if we have some time, I'd almost want to hear a little bit about you and the formation of this and how you kind of started and how yours has scaled on the back end. For anybody who's like, well, this is fascinating, I would love to kind of replicate what you're doing. There's probably a tremendous need for this.
Mm.
Before we go there, though, what's the ideal timeline when you're transitioning from founder handled support into a dedicated team? Typically, I know it probably varies by industry, but what are you looking at? How quickly do we get out of our pain and suffering when we start to outsource this?
You mean when a brand should start looking at outsourcing? At what point?
Or when they do,
Yeah.
like when I've decided to work with you or I've outsourced support in some way,
Hmm.
what's like the ideal, how long should I anticipate as an entrepreneur this whole handover is going to take
Ah,
to where it no longer is my problem?
yeah. Yeah. So we say 2 to 3 weeks. And that's
Mhm.
not 2 to 3 weeks of work from the founder. That's 2 to 3 weeks of work to source candidates, find the right people, interview them, all that stuff. Select the right person, build a training program, build out any AI if that's in scope, and then onboard and train the team. So from the moment
Amazing.
somebody says go, maximum 3 weeks, we could do it quicker, but we don't like to make promises we can't keep here. And then that agent's ready to go. And just fully, we find an agent fully ramped up after that first week of live interactions with customers.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So amazing. And then how long do you think it would actually take? Have you had people say, I tried to do this myself, I'm done? How long do you
Yeah.
think typically founders, business owners are taking to build that out for themselves? Because you've probably got this fine-tuned process, it sounds like.
Hmm.
What am I looking at if I'm trying to bring in somebody to handle this for me in-house?
Yeah. So yeah, we partner with a lot of brands. Like I mentioned, our ICP is somebody that's scaling up and deciding whether to do that internally or outsource. And the problem with that, or not a problem, but everything lives in their head. They don't have SOPs. They don't have anything down. It's the founder. It's all in their head. They have nothing built out at all. So we work with them to build training material. We have some partners that give us 900 pages of training material. We have some that say, I don't have anything. But because we work with so many businesses, if you're a fashion brand or sell shoes, whatever that might be, we're familiar with that vertical. We can help you build that training material. Because the scenarios, the reasons customers reach out aren't that unique. Where's my order? Tell me about these products. My package is lost. I can't purchase. It's just how the business handles that. So we'll take them through the main reasons e-commerce customers reach out, or the main reasons that telehealth customer would reach out, and we'll help fill the gaps and build training material. Inevitably, if it's living in the founder's head, we're not going to gather everything before launch. But if anything comes through, the agent has support from their team lead, their manager. We try and bother the founder and the business as little as possible, because that's why we're there. But then if it's something really unique, we'll reach out and build that into the training material and the knowledge base, so that next time that question comes in, we're not reaching out to the founder. So sometimes we do have to work pretty closely with the business to get that out of their head. And while that might be, a couple hours or whatever it might be, it feels good for them that they have it documented somewhere, because it's not scalable to just have it live in your head and do it on the side of your desk. It's just not, it's not scalable. So you need something at some point documented down. It's just one of those things, like, I'll get to it. It's so easy to push off because it doesn't generate revenue. The time suck, but in the end, it will be great value add to any business.
Yeah. Well, I think even just you mentioning that, like, again, it feels like we're just trying to hard sell Omni, but I think at the end of the day, it's like we're trying to make sure that as entrepreneurs, you are approaching your business with a lot of intention and purpose with how you're spending your time. Yeah. And I feel like it's an easy sell, and it's something that a lot of people need, and they withhold from doing, like you said, because it's going to take time. It just feels like it's not an income producing activity. But even that process of going to the founder, if they haven't yet done this, if they don't have the SOPs, they haven't really put their processes down, their information down, even that right there is worth its weight in gold, because you're able to mine the right things. A lot of times we don't even know what questions to ask. So you'll hire someone. This has been my experience. And they're asking you all these questions, and you suddenly feel like you're almost being persecuted by your employee, because you're like, why do you need to know that? Oh my gosh, I didn't even consider, like, you would have to ask this many questions versus just a one kind of like a more slimmed down process of an intake. Yeah. Because you don't know what you don't know what they don't know. Exactly. But you guys do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because we work with so many brands, we've seen it all. And our customers will come to us and say, hey, I'm looking for a new returns platform, or who do you suggest for this? They always ask us because we partner with so many other platforms or businesses that have seen success or not success with different tools and different companies or agencies. So it's good to have a partner that can point you in the right direction to get you that help. And, it's you get the person asking you so many questions, you start to think, well, their onboarding I should just do it myself. But then you can't go back. Sometimes we get on, we try and book calls with potential customers that we think would be perfect for us. And they'll say, oh, I'm too busy to talk now. And my answer is always, yeah, because you need us. If we were helping you with it, it would free up time. But then, it's that have to make time for it.
Your objection is actually the solution.
Exactly.
You've just sold yourself. Thank you. I love that. So you mentioned something that I wouldn't have thought about had you not said it, where it's like, if you're on the site, somebody has a question, you're able to measure that really as like a KPI to know, we can see that this chat happened, it led to a conversion. What are some other things that you guys track in terms of KPIs to know, first of all, even how to, like, what needs tweaking, what maybe the founder didn't even realize was like a gap in the customer service, and then just other things that you're able to track more profitability by having this resource available?
Yeah. So when I was talking about generating revenue from customer service, and if somebody purchased during the session, that's just an agent available on chat, waiting, like not being proactive in any way. We also have revenue generating tools that will proactively reach out to customers. So like we're running a campaign right now through the little chat widget on the site for a brand that sells shoes in the UK. They sell all over the world. But when somebody adds a pair of shoes to the cart, if their IP is in the UK, chat will pop out and say, it rains 200 days a year in the UK. Don't forget to add this protection kit to your order. So there are
Mm,
ways to pop out and, sell, not in a used car salesman kind of way, but to kind of push add-ons and stuff. And that's a different approach. But even just having an agent sitting there and being available to answer quickly is enough to generate revenue. What we think some key performance indicators for customer service and the success of a program is, of course, customer satisfaction scores, but that's not the only metric. And there is no one metric that shows success. It's not just CSAT, because customers don't always leave negative feedback. Me personally, I rarely fill out a survey, even with a bad
mm-hmm.
experience, unless it is a total disaster. The manual QA of tickets over and above CSAT score, we think are really important. Because customer can have a bad experience, like I said, and not tell anybody. So manually spot checking tickets is really important to make sure our agents are on brand. They're actually answering the customer's questions and they leave happy, regardless of whether they filled out a CSAT
Amazing.
survey at all. First response time is really important. We think that if live chat, you need to be answering in under a minute. If it takes longer than that, you might as well not have chat on the site at all, because customers are sitting there waiting. Email can be a little bit longer. We think a same day response is great on email. Customers aren't expecting an immediate response. Unless there's AI, we can respond immediately. But we think a same day response is good, where you're not spending too much money on customer support, because the person if they're emailing, they don't need a response immediately, but that the wait time isn't too long where you're providing a bad experience. And then for phone calls, we think under 2 minutes is a good service level, but not too good where you may be over your budget. Revenue influenced by support is, of course, really important. The customer lifetime value, are they coming back after chatting with you as well? So we can see if customers are chatting and returning after a good experience or a bad experience that was made right through customer service. And then productivity is a big one, but we don't sacrifice quality for just crushing through tickets. If a customer wants to talk about their day or their dog, we'll say, listen to them. As long as they leave happy, take that 20 minutes to make that customer happy. So I guess it's a combination of everything. It's not just one metric.
Okay. Amazing. Well, and those are really important things for any business owner to be looking at even before you're outsourcing, right? Like make sure you're checking those data points and paying attention. I think sometimes we launch businesses and we're like, oh, it's just not working. People hate my product. And it's like these little micro tweaks, even early on, having a very basic tech stack, having that chat, even if for the first couple months, it's just you and you're responding and you're maybe a little bit like beholden to the computer all day long. But these are really important numbers to be paying attention to, different things that contribute a lot more than we realize to the profitability, the success of our businesses. Okay, so I kind of want to talk a little bit about your founder journey, because I'm so fascinated by this. And before we dive fully into that, I'm curious, I feel like this business model, agency model, is nothing new, but I think it's going to take on a whole new direction, a whole new life as AI has become a lot more integrated and better and fine-tuned. So even as you're talking about email responses and different things that might have in the past required more of the human touch, are you guys employing a lot more AI agents? And is that something that you've kind of like dipped a toe into, or is it like is there a plan to kind of lean more into that? And as it's enhanced, to have AI agents be able to respond to emails and be a lot more nuanced than they used to be?
Yeah. So we have AI tools now that can respond to emails and chats instantly. Social media coming soon. Social media is a different beast. We want to make sure that the AI is able to read acronyms and emojis in the right way, because nothing's worse when it's a public response and the AI was way off. So, but emails and chats are pretty standard. So we're automating those right now instantly with very high personalization. So we can make the AI sound just like you. And it's not robotic at all. You can use emojis. You can make it casual to the point. You can put puns in there as well to make it funny. So it really feels like a human. And we know that customers think it's a human because they leave CSAT scores for the bot. Nobody leaves
Mm.
CSAT scores for a robot, saying like, oh, John was great. So we're leaning into that pretty heavily. A lot of our competitors are not. They're running away from it. We're running towards it
Mm.
because our customers want it. They know it's out there. So we don't want to have a partner and go, don't look over there, nothing to see over there, don't worry, because we're worried about our human agents, the headcount decreasing. We want to be a trusted partner. We don't call our clients, we call them partners, because we don't want to be considered a vendor. We want to be a partner with them to help them as they grow. We love scaling up with our brands. So we would rather have thousands and thousands of small customers that trust us and know that we're doing what's best for them than 100 whales that we're trying to hide AI from. Because in the end, our customers could implement AI themselves and still decrease our headcount. And then the relationship is fractured because they feel like we're not doing what's best for them. So through our, with our brands that are using AI, chat, email, the whole works, we automate anywhere between 50 and 75% of tickets that come in. And sure, we decrease the headcount a little bit, but we build a really good relationship. And then agents focus on other things like live sales and building relationships and loyalty with customers versus just trying to do 200 tickets an hour, firing out responses. So it's improving really fast, and we're going to keep bringing new features and shiny toys to all of our partners.
Yeah, I love that. It's blowing my mind. We had a guest on here probably a few months ago. First time I'd ever heard the term AI agent, and I was like, what are you talking about? Like, it's just moved so rapidly.
Yes.
And it's so incredible. When you mentioned like people think it's a person, do you feel like there's a need for that disclosure of telling people like I'm an AI or I'm so-and-so's like AI assistant, or do you feel like people don't care? Like, what's kind of your stance
good
on
question. We get that all the time. I think there's two different ways to ask that question. Legally, do I need to tell people? I think in certain states you do need to disclose that. California being one of them, EU. So legally depends who you're chatting with. And that's pretty easy to do in a privacy policy or have a privacy disclaimer in the live chat. So there are ways around to notify customers. But I think you were referencing, will it upset customers if you reply with AI or try to hide that they're talking to AI? 5 years ago, yes, it would have upset customers. But that's because AI was unhelpful. It was robotic. It was wrong. And so the customers felt like you were brushing them off, like you didn't care about the request. But when the AI is accurate, personalized, and instant, the customers don't care that it's a bot. They care if it's wrong and it seems like you're not paying attention to them. So as long as it's working, nobody cares if it's a bot.
Yeah. It's just like the times you're on the phone and you're like, I pushed number 5. Why? You have to mute it so it's not picking up your voice and you're so frustrated.
We do not do any voice AI right now because, and it's really just a personal reason, because I try and call my bank and they never understand what I'm saying. I shout, I press £0, shout. The guy never understands it. So I tell my team I refuse to do it until I have a good experience. Then we'll look at it. It's pretty terrible. I can't. But big companies, it feels like big companies have lost their way with customer service. They hide their phone number. It's impossible to find them. It's a bot, but you can't get in touch with anybody, or you need to be on a certain plan to get support. And the growing businesses see that customers are really, really, really important to their business. And I don't know if they get to a certain size where they're like, we don't care if you're happy with our service because we're so big. If you don't like it, okay. We have all these other customers. I don't know if it gets to a point where customer service is so expensive, unless they're automating really well a lot. They get to a point where like, we don't care if one customer is upset because we have so many. And I've worked with businesses on a personal level where I feel like they don't care about me as a customer. they just have so many
Yeah.
others. So
Yep. We don't want to be those businesses, and we want to build it right from the beginning so that when we do, like, the goal is not to stay small. The goal is to be able to be big and still have that authenticity and that really, really great service so that we can stay big and we can
yeah.
stay relevant and people continue to rave about us.
Yeah. And you want to do it ahead of time before it becomes a problem, right? As
Yeah.
founders, 6-7 years ago, I was in that boat where I was managing my own customer service team who supports other brands, but I was doing accounting and hiring and everything else that comes with just managing a business, forecasting, and you are drowning, and then you get something solved to get your head above water for a minute, and then something else, you start drowning. So we always try and anticipate based on how many customers and requests and people we'll have on board when we're going to need other roles so that we're ahead of that versus drowning and trying to catch up and potentially losing customers or employees that are just like, hey, this is too crazy for me, right? We want our employees to have a good work-life balance. So we try and stay ahead of it versus waiting for too long for any position.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, I mean, since you kind of dived there and I mentioned I wanted to talk a little bit about this, it's 2025. There might be some people who are like, there's so many agency models that are not going to work anymore because of AI. I still get emails for people pitching services that I'm like, I literally already have an app for that, as cliche as that sounds. I don't need you to go make clips for my social media posts because I literally can do that in the click of a button.
Yeah.
For you, I'm sure it's evolved a ton because of AI, but if you were to talk to somebody who's like, hey, I'm really thinking there's probably a gap here. Do you see that there's a much bigger need than even you yourself can fill, and that this would be a really good space for people to go into, and that the agency model is not going to be dead as long as you stay relevant? I know that was a very loaded question.
Yeah.
But for somebody hearing this, they're like, oh, maybe I could do that. Like, that's so cool. And there's ways that I can use AI and maybe not having to manage tons and tons of people.
Yeah.
Like, talk real to us about that.
Yeah. I don't think the agency model is going away for the simple fact is people don't want to do it. Like similar to what you said, you have an app that makes these clips, right? But I sometimes bring on or use an agency for things that could I do it? Sure. But is my time, is that what I should be spending my time doing?
Yeah.
And we have some customers that say, couldn't I just do it myself? Like I said, yeah, absolutely. You could stitch your own shirt, but we go to the mall to buy our clothes because I just don't want to stitch my shirt. So a lot of businesses is things you could do yourself. Could I package my own products and ship them out from my garage? Sure. But it's not a great experience. So I don't think the agency model is going away. I think if you're just if you're just a hiring agency where you're looking for people, I don't think there's any value there anymore unless you need an employer of record in that country. So we can hire from all these different countries because we have established offices there and we deal with the taxes and that kind of stuff. So if you needed somebody in France and you don't want to deal with the legalities of that, sure, a hiring agency should be fine. But you could get a French speaker in Canada or the US, right? Where you don't need to deal with that stuff. Where we find is our big differentiators, the fully managed service. We're acting as your entire department. So you don't need to be involved in any aspect. You look at your reporting and you know everything is going well. So, customer services are the big part of our business. We do outsource sales as well, cold email, phone calls, that kind of stuff we outsource as well. And that too fits in well with what we do with customer service because it is fully managed as well. We write call scripts, we do cold email outreach with AI and a similar kind of model. And that's every vertical that we operate in. The goal is there a fully managed solution with no gaps so that our businesses don't have to be in the weeds of it as they want to be. So I don't think the agency model is going anywhere. Just
I don't think
if
it's
you
going
do it
anywhere
right.
either. Yeah, exactly. As long as you're actually still solving a problem. And I think you bring up an important point that there's multiple ways to solve a problem. So like you said, I can go and do it myself. I think it's knowing who you're speaking to and knowing the actual point you're coming in the business for them, how you're alleviating an actual problem. And it's like doing something that does solve a problem instead of just doing something for the sake of having the service. And I think that's where people miss the mark when they cold market to me and they're offering this is like, I don't need the tool. I need the transformation. I need the solution to a problem. You're just offering me a tool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, a lot of,
That's a
yeah, there's
big.
tons of technology solutions out there, but do you need a developer to build it? Do you want to
Mhm.
spend time building it? And are you even going to use it right? So, I mean,
Yeah.
we're big partners of Zendesk and CRMs like Gorgeous and Intercom and different sales tools, Salesforce. 99% of the partners that we work with are not using it to its full potential. There's massive
Mm.
gaps, and that's because they don't know it. They don't they don't understand what it can do. They don't want to spend the time doing it. So that's not uncommon.
Mhm. So if I mean, there's so many people who feel like there's all these things that are going to become saturated. There's all these business models that are going to totally change in the next several years. I know we said like the agency model itself is not going to really go
Mhm.
anywhere, but what do you recommend? We have a lot of listeners here who might be hearing this. When you start something like an agency, when you're wanting to provide that service for people because you want to dive in, you want to get really good at providing maybe it's customer service, something else. What are your recommendations even now you have technology like what because I'm just saying because I've been thinking about this tossing this around with my husband like there's this thing I'm really proficient at and I could totally turn that into a totally automated process and find 10 clients tomorrow
Yep.
who would 100% pay me money to do that. Is it as simple as that with starting? Is that what you would recommend now, or are there some other things that you need to factor in and consider if you want to start an agency model business?
Yeah. So that is true. And that's kind of how I started. I worked for Club Med resorts for a while, working kind of hospitality, which is the service industry, just in a different
Mm-hmm.
vertical. And then I came back and I was in the hotel industry here in Canada, and I was approached by a company that was just growing really quickly and wanted some customer support help. And their customer service at the time was a single phone on the desk, which I haven't seen in a really long time. There were 5 lines. The sixth caller would just be hung up on. There was no live chat, nothing. So I built that all up from the ground up and built live chat solutions and AI. And some of those customers of that business would say, wow, you guys are doing this really well. Do you want to take on customer service for our whole business? No, that's not our business. But then I started thinking, wow, there is a gap here. We seem to be doing it really well. I could find 10, like you said, 10 customers. And that's if somebody really excels at something and they're the experts at it, that's typically when agencies start, like Shopify Plus agencies that build websites. Somebody's really passionate about it. Oh, I can do it. Let me find some customers or find somebody to help us find customers. So that's important, right? You need to, if you're an expert at it, people need to think that you are the industry expert in that field, whether it's marketing or,
Mm.
pay-per-click ads. You have to be the expert because it's not just going to Google and building the ad. You need to know what the images need to look like. You need to know what language and length of the ad is going to capture people's attention, who to tailor it to. Anybody can go in and put an image up and put some copy on a Instagram ad. But is it going to capture attention? That's where the value of the agency is. It's not necessarily just doing the work. It's the best practices. It's their experience that you are hiring them for. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're a subject matter expert, great. If you think you can find the clients, great. A big thing to focus on would be pricing, depending on the size of the business that you want to use. Can you be competitive with others in the industry? Um, Especially if you're working with small, medium-sized businesses, pricing is huge for them. So
Mm-hmm.
you need to be competitive. If you can, at your agency, depending on what you're doing, if it's a marketing agency, outsource some of that to keep your cost down to be competitive. That is great because pricing might be the first thing people look at. Call
Yeah.
me a little impatient. If I'm looking for a service, I'll go to the pricing page. If it's too high, I won't really read all the features, everything that they're doing
Mm-hmm.
that's better than this option. Maybe they offer way more. But if you're an impatient person, you land on the site, pricing is too high, you might bounce. So you want to be as competitive with pricing as possible. I think that's how you'll be successful as an agency. There's a market need. Even if there's competitors, you can do something better. There's a lot of grocery stores, right? But some will shop at their favorite. So it doesn't necessarily need to be something that nobody's doing. You can just do it better. And
Mm.
then be a subject matter expert to guide people through. That's where the real value is. Keeping costs down, I think, is really important.
Awesome. Thanks for peeling the curtain back. I know we probably didn't bank on tell us a little behind the scenes of how you
It's
build your
okay.
business
That's what
specifically.
you're for.
But I love it. I know we have a lot of like people are students as they listen to this and they want to know all the different options available to them, different things that they could focus on moving forward. So I appreciate that.
Mhm.
Any final things to add? I know we've covered a ton of ground. I appreciate you just being so succinct, giving such powerful
Mhm.
answers today. So anything else you'd add in terms of even going back to our conversation with scaling, things that you really like, you talk to people, maybe you're on these sales calls, you're like, what do they need to hear right now? No matter the stage they're at in business. Like, what do you just want people to understand?
About kind of outsourcing or
Yeah.
growing a business.
Outsourcing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Growing a business, which includes outsourcing.
Yeah. So what I think the biggest thing I struggled with as a founder when we first started, it was myself and a couple salespeople. We wanted to hit the ground running. We walked into an office with just a computer on the table. It was a little nerve-wracking. I was really involved in everything, and that's not scalable. Um,
Mm,
not only did I not only did I probably not do everything really well, because you can't be the best at client success and tech and managing people and HR and accounting. There's a few things, I won't tell you which, that I'm not really good at all. And so those things take me 10 times longer. I found it was really hard for me to offload that to somebody, because I felt like, oh, it's my baby. I want it done right. But if you can find people that are experts in that area, it'll be done better than the way you were
mm,
doing it. So it's kind of, we find that a lot with growing brands, where maybe they're the face of the brand and they just want to keep everything close to their heart. That's not scalable. You have to let it go at some point and find a trusted partner that will help you. And in the end, when you find those right people, every aspect of the business is done better because they're the experts in it. I wasn't an expert in accounting. I wasn't an expert in all that kind of stuff. So
mm.
it wasn't done well. It could have been done a lot better. Reporting could have been better for shareholders. So, or, a client success, our customers could have been taken care of better. So being open to bringing people on that are experts and not micromanaging, and trust that they're doing a good job, I think is really, really important when you're starting
Yeah.
any business. And then of course, there's a lot of outsourcing options. There's fractional CFOs. When you get to a certain point, you can outsource bookkeepers, you can outsource sales teams and managed technologies. So you don't need to necessarily bring on dedicated team members. You could have an accountant or a fractional CFO that comes in Monday, Wednesday, Friday for a few hours to make sure that your books are in line.
Mm.
And then for entrepreneurs, be ready for the roller coaster. You're going to have 3 weeks where you're not getting any deals, no customers, and you're thinking, oh, is this right for me? And then the next week you'll close 4 deals and 4 customers, that's my biggest, I guess, advice to new entrepreneurs: just be ready for the roller coaster. We'll have a brand that will go under, and we're not partnering with them anymore. And then the next week we'll get 5 new customers. So it's just be ready for that roller coaster
Yep.
ride that is entrepreneurship. And it's fun. It's all part of the fun. But
Yeah.
it's not for everybody, but be ready
Yep.
for it. Yeah.
I love it. Buckle up, buttercup.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so if they're watching the video, they're going to see Omni, but can you just tell us where should they go? Just omni.com?
omnicsr.com. So
Okay.
I don't know if it'll be posted, but omniecsr.com. And I don't know if you wanted to include my email in there, but anybody that has any questions about any of this stuff, are they looking for some guidance starting a business or want to learn more about outsourcing, feel free to reach out. Happy to jump on a call with any listeners and chat it through.
Okay, amazing. We will link to all of that in the show notes. Thank you so
Yeah,
much, Jordan,
thanks.
for the conversation. So much value in this one little talk. I
Great.
appreciate it so much.
Thanks, Kristen.